Good morning. My name is Melissa Lane. I am the Health and Temperance Leader at the Ephesus Seventh-day Adventist Church in Saginaw.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bobbie Porter, and I am the Health and Temperance Leader for the Flint Fairhaven Seventh-day Adventist Church. Welcome. We're glad you came to join us today.
Today, our topic is on suicide. This is a tough topic to discuss, but it's very important, and awareness needs to be spread about this issue. Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has had profound psychological and social effects that will probably persist for months and even years to come. Suicide is a major public health problem and one of the leading causes of death in the United States. The effects of suicide go beyond the person who acts to take his or her life. It can have a lasting effect on family, friends, and communities. We will play a video and then have a discussion about this issue. We hope this will help you, a friend or a family member, learn about the warning signs, symptoms, and risk factors about suicide and suicide prevention.
I'll tell you the value of these conversations. Around the world, we lose someone to suicide about every 40 seconds. In the United States, we lose about 129 people a day. It's the 10th leading cause of death in the country. Suicides are a public health issue that we really need to focus more and more attention on.
Suicide really does live in silence. I think for individuals who are feeling suicidal, they may not share that information for a lot of different reasons. Weakness comes up a lot. I don't want people to think that I'm weak, whereas reaching out for help is the strongest thing that any of us can do. To be vulnerable is to be genuine. It's to be real. It's to be human. And we forget that. And so that holds us back, and that just feeds that silence that can turn into something really bad.
We see suicide every day. Literally. People who have attempted suicide and they're brought in, by family members or law enforcement. That is in every emergency department in the entire city. There is not an age group or a demographic that this does not touch. Children, adults, elderly, rich, poor, it doesn't matter where you come from. There's not a corner of the city that doesn't touch.
I've said multiple times, if you had a year and 2 months ago sat me down and said this was even a possibility, I would have looked at you and said, no, it's not. There's no possible way this could affect our family. 3 Boys is just busy and fun and high energy. They're all very different.
Hi, Ty.
Hayden, gives hugs, wants to lay down and get his back scratched. And Matthew's my senior. He needs new and fun and exciting. Maybe doesn't make the best choices all the time. He's my fun one, and totally opposite Tyler, who always made the right choice, never bucked the system, was complete rule follower, straight A. So, yes, 3 boys that I have to parent very differently. Tyler just had a much harder time with the transition to school. One day he and I were talking on the phone, and he said, Mom, I just want you to know I'm really lonely, and it's lasted for a while, so I went and started talking to a counselor. And I said, I'm so proud of you. That's exactly what you should have done. I'm so proud of you for doing that. The next weekend, one of his good friends went to visit, and that night, the friend called his mom and said, Mom, Tyler mentioned that he was super lonely and thinking about taking his own life. His mom called me the next morning and said, Whitney, I'm not sure how to share this with you, but last night, Tyler mentioned that he wanted to take his own life, which, gosh, I'm so thankful that the friend talked to his mom and that she took it seriously and she called me. So I drove straight home, picked up Kevin, and we left for Chapel Hill to go pick him up.
If you're worried about somebody, it's really important that you have the courage to ask a very hard question. Are you thinking of suicide?
One of the greatest barriers sometimes for loved ones is the fear that maybe I'm wondering if my loved one is suicidal, but if I ask and they're not, then I'm planting an idea. Research has shown repeatedly that asking a person directly about suicide does not plant the idea or increase their risk. In fact, it can do the opposite and decrease the risk.
It could open up a very purposeful door for that person to actually feel like you care enough to ask me that question, and I need to tell you everything that's going on with me.
So I encourage folks, if you're feeling nervous about it, to practice, right? Say it out loud. Say it to your mirror if you need to. Record yourself on your phone saying it first if that helps you feel better. Accept that it's going to be a little awkward and uncomfortable for you and maybe for that other person, but see the necessity in having that conversation.
He said, Mom, I've done all the research. I think it's just severe depression because I can feel perfectly fine, like myself, happy as can be, and it's like a light switch. And it's like somebody just turns it off, and I am so low that I don't feel like myself, and I don't know what to do other than I've got to stop the pain. He was very much needed to know all the information and a problem solver.
As a society, we want to understand things that don't seem understandable to us. And we tend to want to kind of look for the one or two things that we can see on the surface. But suicide is never just caused by one or two things. There's lots of social factors, health factors, emotional factors, historical factors in a person's life that can lead them to this point.
One of the things that has really changed over the last several years is a rise in suicides in communities of color. So it happened, I'm on the elevator with this African-American woman. She's probably late 60s. And she said, where are you going in such a hurry? I said, well, I just got a call. I'm getting ready to go and put this panel together for suicide. We're going to talk about suicide awareness. And she leaned into me and whispered. Now, ain't about an elevator but us, so that was creepy. But she leans in and she says, you know, one thing about us, we might kill somebody else, but we don't kill ourselves. Like I was supposed to give her a fist bump or something. And I said, well, actually that's not true. And then by that time the elevator stopped and we had to get off. But what I wanted to share with her is, we do die by suicide. There were more suicides among African-American children aged 10 to 14 than there were white children. 2018, stats came out, so that number is double. We are dying.
So the way I was trained to deal with any mental health issues, stresses, and things when I was growing up was shut up and do nothing. And if anything is going on in here, you better not go out there and tell nobody. What happens in this house stays in this house. So what do you want me to do to escape this? Because wasn't no going to therapy. What? That's crazy, people. We don't do that in this community. But when I went outside, there was marijuana, there was alcohol, there was crack. That's the way, you know, to numb the pain. It's Halloween every day for us in that community because we got to put on our masks and go pretend to be something else when we're out. But a ticking time bomb because of the trauma.
You've used the word trauma a few times now. Can you just describe that? Like, what were some of the traumatic things that you were experiencing or seeing?
You really want to know? I want you to understand that you're looking at someone who's been molested, who never knew who their father was. You're looking at someone that grew up in a house that saw my mother being beaten. You're looking at someone that, at 11 years old, best friend murdered somebody. You're looking at someone that saw all type of trauma in the communities that I grew up in. I remember being on the school bus, and there was a young lady that sat right in front of me, and everybody always picked on her. So one day she didn't get on the bus, and then we found out that she had killed herself. She had to be about 10 or 11 years old. That trauma, I was numb to it. It made me think, this is normal, this is life.
What we do know now, more so than we knew 20 years ago, is the impact of trauma on mental health. For example, if you have a child who's sitting in the classroom and they can't concentrate, they can't focus, they're staring out the window all day, it's easy to decide that child has ADHD. But what if this is a child who doesn't know they're gonna have food to eat when they get home? Or they're thinking about whether or not their dad is gonna be drunk and beat them when they get home. That's a child that's gonna feel isolated, that's a child that's gonna feel alone, and that's a child who is a candidate to be suicidal down the road if we don't intervene.
I didn't really have much hope for the future. I feel like I had no control. My father left when I was about 5, and my mother would work her butt off every single day. She was a hard-working woman, and she made sure that we were her best friends. She used to call us her gems.
What was your mom's name?
Sylvestra Ardinas, but people called her Sylvie for short. This is my mom. Okay, hold on. Let me fix it. I'm so amazed because until the doctor told us that she had 3 weeks to live, she was a happy woman. She smiled. Oh, I love this one. Okay, I don't think you're ready for it. Are you ready for it? We were at the pizza place. She was my world. And I couldn't control losing my best friend. And I started cutting myself. My friend told me she found this on the internet and a picture off of a social media website, and she said, you know, it actually works. I know it might be sort of a bad thing, but this works. And I actually lost that friend. It's hard to say her name, so I won't. And she saw no point of a future either.
At the end of the day, suicide prevention, suicide awareness, it really is about saving lives. So I think it starts with having conversation with kids at an early age and letting them know that suicide is real, that when they're feeling depressed or when they're feeling angry or when they're feeling isolated or feeling anxious, there's nothing wrong with those feelings, but they need to really have a venue to be able to talk about those things.
We really need to focus a lot on not just gatekeeping, so stopping somebody when they reach the point that they're suicidal, but more of an upstream approach, like what skills, what resiliencies, and protective factors can we build in to the fabric of our society that prevents somebody from even reaching that point. Strong social connections, a strong faith, a willingness to seek help, also just kind of emotional skills. Folks are not taught how to cope with emotion or that they even need to cope with emotions.
What does this look like potentially when someone is struggling with suicide? Are they withdrawing from their friends, taking risks that weren't typically there? Maybe, I'm drinking or using drugs. Those are some precursors that things aren't going well. And then what we're asking people to do is pay attention and recognize those things, and then ask a very specific question. Are you thinking of suicide? Are you thinking you want to hurt yourself? And then where do we go from there? You're not just gonna send them off. So be present, help walk that journey with somebody so they're not alone.
So Kevin and I were taking turns spending the weeks with Tyler up at college. And I left on a Friday, and Kevin was planning to go up on Saturday morning. And so it was only one night that Tyler was gonna be alone in his dorm room.
So how did you feel leaving Tyler that day?
I really felt good, actually. I felt like he was in such a good place. And honestly, he thought he was too. And he was really looking forward to having movie night at Katie's house. And there was a swim party the next night that he had gotten, a fun white elephant gift. So I was excited driving back, seeing how well he was doing, how well I thought he was doing. I think that he had every intention when I left him of being there the next day. But I think when he hit that low that night and the loneliness crept in, he realized that this was a problem he couldn't solve. So he did write us a letter. He said he didn't want to burden us that he really didn't think that he could be fixed. And little does he know, we would have done anything in the world. But I just don't think he saw that.
We know that in a moment of becoming more and more suicidal, thinking narrows. The person's ability to kind of problem solve becomes greatly diminished. Their ability to kind of reason through things becomes diminished. And so options get smaller and smaller and smaller. It's not that they just want to die, it's that they don't see a way to live.
It's feeling like there's this huge fog all around you. You can't see things the way that other people see them. It really feels like this is it. This is all that I have. I've betrayed people. I haven't lived up to their expectations. I haven't lived up to my own expectations. There is no world in which I will ever be happy or successful or feel joy again. And I don't want to be a burden to other people because I'm clearly bringing everybody else down, and I have got to remove myself.
I will never fully understand it because I haven't lived it. But I think the thing that I can wrap my head around is that it takes someone being in a lot of pain, whether it's physical or emotional, to feel like death is preferable to living another minute with what you're going through.
Crack cocaine. I was selling crack cocaine. And now I got all of this money, and I feel like I'm growing up in this neighborhood, and I'm becoming a known street pharmacist for people's pain and trauma. And it just seemed like everything was just so illusionary, if that's a word, good. And then all of a sudden, one day I was going to my grandmother's house. My little brother was in the back playing Sega Genesis. My grandmother was in her bedroom watching The Guiding Light soap opera. And I was just in the living room with my little brother. And all of a sudden he said, "Titus, there's some guys running across grandma's yard." So I jump up, I go to the door. By the time I got to the door, the guys had guns. This is broad daylight in a residential area. But both of them got guns, I back up. Now, when I back up into the house, they tell us to lay down on the floor. My little brother immediately lays down. Me, street smarts, the environment I grew up in. I'm looking at your face. Y'all, we're looking at each other face to face. You're gonna kill us. So I'm not gonna lay down. Please, please. I said, "Oh, let me get some out of my glove box." Now, trauma. I should be panicking, fearing for my life. No, I got a 9mm laid between my seat. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna get this 9mm. And I'm gonna grab it and I'm gonna spin around and I'm gonna go out in a blaze. I'm gonna shoot them and they're gonna shoot me and they're gonna know my name. They're gonna say, "He went out like a G." Cause that's what they do, that's what you do. I open the car door. I can't make this up. I reach to go between my seat. He says, "You looking for this?" He puts the gun to the back of my head and says, "There's no money, is it?" I said, "Yeah, it is, it is, it is, it is." Out of nowhere, a crackhead comes up and says, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And we all just turn and look. And I take off. I'm running. And it's gunfire. I'm hit, but I'm gone. This is gonna get you. What I'm getting ready to tell you is the definition of trauma, the numbness. I run all the way across the street behind a neighbor's house. I'm standing there. I look down. Blood is pouring out of my left hip. And I'm looking and it's quiet. And I'm looking and I see my BMW door open and he's trying to steal my car now. Oh, he tried to steal my car. I look around. Gotta find me a weapon to defend my car. And I begin to go back across the street to this guy that got my gun and his gun, and he's in my car. Listen to that. Listen to the numbness, the insanity. I got to the car. I said, "You bleep." When I said it, he immediately grabbed the gun and pointed it. I immediately was coming in the car with the center line. I hit it. I turned to run. Gun goes off. And I fall. And I'm trying to get up. Houston, legs are not operating. I look back over my shoulder. He's out of the car. He walks over, he shoots again, he shoots again, he shoots again. And all I can hear is stop moving. Now I know the Spirit of the Lord said, stop moving. I wake up. It's a dream, I was dreaming. I was dreaming. Nothing. And cause this is real. This ain't, I'm not dreaming. I'm 24. I can't live like this. I don't want to live like this. Morphine, numbing the pain. Remember, that's the only way I know. I numb the pain. Now they're not giving me the button anymore. They're giving me pills. I bet you if I get enough of them. Took a pill, stuck it under my pillow, took a pill. Oh, I got about 50 of them now. I'm gonna do it tonight. Wake me up. Oh, the nurse standing there. Baby. Yes, ma'am. What is this? I look at her hands, she got the pills. And I started crying. I was like, she said, baby, you can't do this. I said, but you don't know what kind of life I'm gonna live. I can't walk. And she got stern. She said, you have no right. It's not your life. Whose life? And she said, it's God's life. He gave it to you. She said, I said, I don't believe in all of that stuff. She said, well, you should. She said, give him a chance. She said, I can only stop you now. I'm not gonna let you do this. She said, but this is God's life. She said, you have no idea. If you do this, do you know how many people's lives you might touch? How many lives you might change? Do you know who Jesus is? That he died for you and he loves you? And I'm looking at this woman. No. You're telling me to believe in Jesus. What was Jesus when my friend was killing that guy? What was Jesus when he was being beaten? When he was 11? What was Jesus when that girl decided to commit suicide when we was in elementary? And where's Jesus now, ma'am? I can't walk. So needless to say, I didn't do it. I left there. I ended up going into rehab, and the day I went into rehab, I saw that lady, August 29th, 1995. She led me to Christ. And that's what started putting me on the path to understanding and unraveling the trauma and the pain.
We just act as though it's like so unusual. And it's the most like basic question is like, should I continue fighting? Should I continue staying alive? Should I continue working towards something? Or should I give up? That's something that we all have to face at some point in our lives.
I think that there's great hope around this issue. We've got many wonderful examples of people in our society who are now coming forward and sharing their story of hope and how they've, made it from a point of being very suicidal and feeling like life had no worth to finding a life worth living. And all of us have a life worth living.
I'm a huge advocate for suicide because I'm a survivor of 7 times, and I still got a chance to get better. I literally got chances by doctors, psychiatrists, and counselors, and also the police. So many times I got tired of it. Why are these people keep trying to help me? Don't they obviously see I'm trying to die? Don't they obviously see that I do not want to go further? It does not matter. And I told my sister one day, yelling at her, I told her that I'm a broken person. No one loves broken people. And you know what she said? I love you. It's time to love yourself. And if it weren't for her saying that, I would have never seen the fact that people love me. And the option wasn't suicide anymore. My sister loves me. My mother loves me. I got people who love me now. I needed the love and support from other people. But first, I had to be willing to know that someone else is trying to love me. And I needed to let them in.
You don't have to have a degree in psychology. You don't have to have all these things. You just have to have the ability to provide somebody with hope. Hope is telling someone that you're going to stick through something hard with them and then being prepared to help that person get connected to help.
We have emergency services as well as outpatient therapy. There's a wide continuum of mental health services that are available.
It is definitely a community issue. It takes the school system, it takes the faith-based community, it takes the hospital system, it takes all of us working together if we're ever going to reduce the rates of suicide and to let people know that there are folks out there who care about them.
So all our barbers attend mental health first aid. I mean, the barbers are the frontline soldiers. We get the rawness, we get the raw experience of the clients, of the community, and so we have to be equipped. Personally, I've seen young men who've dealt with depression in the state of suicidal. And if they could just get some word of encouragement or someone who just cares, you will see their spirit just go up. And if you could add that hope with some information, their life will change. Their life will change.
I think as people, we are designed to need other people. There's so much relief, so much connection and community that people find in letting down their guard.
Hey guys! Hi everybody!
The first choice that we had to make was we can have the choice to bury this or we can go all out and let God use our story in this for good.
Thanks so much for coming and spending some time listening to my story. I'm super excited to be sharing it with you guys. As you know, our family has spent a lot of time processing over the last 18 months and trying to figure out how we use our story to help others, and went through the grieving process of, yes, I was angry and
are angry.
So yeah, the process was hard. It went from who am I angry at and how has this happened to, okay, it has happened, and how do we make sure that good comes out of this?
I feel like what Tyler, if he were still here, would do, what he essentially wanted to do and could not do himself.
Yes.
That you're able to carry on for.
Yes, I think Tyler would be really proud. I think he was so selfless that it's exactly what he would want.
So I would challenge people in our communities with good intention and wisdom, just find out what can you do to help. These people need help. I needed help.
I think everyone has the ability to be a front linesman. I mean, at some point, at some part in your life, you are on the front line. So I just want to encourage everybody to just, pick up your equipment and fight the good fight.
I'm a licensed therapist at this facility where I was treated for a suicide attempt. I mean, it doesn't get much more full circle than that. That's why I know that recovery is possible.
And years ago is when I thought about suicide. And I still think about it now. But I know that I have to keep going and that there's tons of muscles in my body that tell me that today is not the day you're ending.
The journey has just been a roller coaster. I think it's little glimpses of happiness, the happiness that we had, start to come back. I mean, good can come out of this and will come out of this. So I know that God loves me. I know that God loved Tyler and loves him today. And I can choose joy because of that.
You might be struggling, facing so many obstacles, but you're not crazy either. There are people out there who have felt like this and they've lived on. And I am with you. You can do this.
You have no idea how many lives you're gonna touch. I promise you. I promise you. I bet my wheelchair that if you just choose to live, there's someone or someone's depending on you to make it. Is gonna need to hear your story on how you got over, on how you made it. Please allow God, number one, and allow someone or someone's to journey with you through the pain, the trauma, and the mental. God bless you.
Touch on our teens. That's a core group that we have, the lost group, who have suicidal thoughts, and some who have even gone to the extent of attempting suicide. So we wonder, why would someone at that age feel like they're not enough, feel like that they are just, they don't need to be around anymore?
The teens that I've heard from and the reasons that I'm aware of, I'd heard of, is that many times teens feel as if, number one, they're hurting. They're in a situation where they not only mentally and psychically hurt and the spirit hurt, but the pain is so bad, the situation they're in is so bad, they physically feel pain. And so they feel like there's no hope. And they might actually be in a physically or mentally abusive situation, and they don't know who to turn to.
They may not feel comfortable enough to speak up and say something. Even though you may have feelings of being unwanted, unloved, maybe feeling that it's impossible to deal with the situation that you're in. There's a lot of grief. There is hope. Still reach out to a loved one. Reach out to a close friend. Reach out to someone that you can confide in, because hope is not lost. I know that's a continuous theme through this. Hope is not lost. We want to make sure that you have the resources available so that way you can get the help that you need.
You know, Melissa, I hear or I've heard teens say that they feel so ashamed. They feel ashamed, number one, for feeling that way. And then some who've attempted and didn't succeed, praise the Lord, they did not succeed. But then they feel really ashamed for people to know what happened. It's easy for me to say, don't feel ashamed. But you do feel ashamed, and that's okay. That may be just part of the healing even, to say that, you know, this is not right. Help me think of something else and think of something else to do, something else positive. The other thing that I've heard from teens is that they don't see a way out. And sometimes the way out may not be apparent. It may not be tomorrow. But if you just hold on, the end is coming, the end to shame, the end of whatever abuse you're going through. Just hold on. For some teens, the answer might be, like we said before, a helping person. It might be a different situation that comes up when you're in the midst of the problems. Sometimes it might be the fact that you won't be in that situation at all. Maybe you move out of the home, or you'll age out of the home. My point is, and I mentioned earlier, there's so many famous people that attempted suicide unsuccessfully. And when they attempted suicide, they were young. Some of them were teens. They couldn't see an end in sight, but they held on. And now not only are they famous, they are nice people. They're doing good things for others. There's a purpose why God put your life here today. It's not just for you to go through what's bad. It's not just for you to be hurt. There's good ahead of you. Think, even if you can't think positively, just project ahead. There's something wonderful in store for you. Hold on.
You can't have a testimony without a test.
There you go. And you got a testimony.
So
and now,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Not only that you have a testimony, guess what? God has got somebody coming in your life in the future. You don't know who it is. And maybe you do, but you don't know who that person, what that situation will be. Hang on, because God needs you to live. He needs you to live so you can give hope to somebody else. So please, please, please get help.
As we've seen in the video, people struggle with suicide, but in the end, they see that there was a purpose. As we've seen in the young lady in there attempted suicide about 7 times. And for whatever reason, the last time that she committed suicide, her sister came up to her and said, "You know what? I love you." And that in itself made her feel like she belongs here.
It broke the cycle, didn't
found
it?
Purpose.
Yes.
So what we don't want to happen, or what we want to prevent from happening, is substance abuse or seeking love or escape in the wrong places.
You know, I've often thought, Melissa, that we're human. We've had problems and situations and issues. And there are many times when I feel like I'm down or there's no hope. I keep thinking about, okay, so I think about Bobbie. Who do you have positive in your life? Sometimes I can think of somebody that I can go to. Sometimes I can't, not humanly speaking, but I can always, always close my eyes and just picture that Jesus is near. Jesus is telling me to hold on. He's promised that he would never leave us.
Yes.
And that's what we need to do. And I'm not sure if this is the correct time. I would like to tell you a story of a young man, or I heard his story rather, and he had a very painful childhood. There was a lot of physical abuse, a lot of beating. There even was some sexual abuse in his background. And he was able to leave home when he was 16. And when he was 70, he joined the service, and so all that abuse obviously stopped. But he still was depressed because of things that had happened to him in his past. And he eventually said he found something that would help him. And one of the things he said helped him is that he had to get his mind together. And so when he got up in the morning, he had a regime, he had a regiment. There were things he had to do in order and in step, which helped him improve his mental attitude for the day and helped him get through the day. And one of the first things he did, he had a certain time to get up every day. When he got up, he went for a run. He either went for a run if the weather was too bad. He did his exercise inside, and he did it until he was just tired. And then when he finished his run or his exercise, he'd go back and he made sure that he had something that was healthy. He fixed himself a healthy shake with greens and fruit and stuff. And he drank that, make sure he had water. And then, he said, then he was ready to face the day. And before all that, he started the day by praying. And when he was exercising and running, he was still praying and talking to Jesus. He didn't stop because his activity changed. He didn't stop communicating. But those other things helped his body feel good. It helped his mind be at peace. And it helped him to cope with the problems that came throughout the day. And he also found out that if he went to bed at a certain time, then he was more at ease and at peace. But when things got out of kilter, he had a hard time. So,
and that's where having that strong support system comes into play.
Yes.
It's really important to have solid people in your life.
Yes.
Especially if you're dealing with this mental illness.
And I'm glad you mentioned, you spoke a few minutes ago as suggesting that and hoping that nobody would deal with substance abuse. What sometimes teens especially and young adults don't realize is that the alcohol and drugs help you to spiral down, and it's hard to get back out because they are depressants. You don't need something that's going to depress you even more than you already are depressed. If anything, get something that will help build you up, not depress you. So
see, sometimes people don't realize that that makes you even more depressed.
Exactly.
Sometimes people just want to escape. And you know what? I'm going to escape with alcohol. I'm going to escape with drugs.
Yes.
Anything that they can do to take their mind off of whatever incident that has brought them down.
And you know, it's a compound problem because you're already down. You're going to use the substance abuse of alcohol. And for a hot minute, there is a euphoria. For a hot minute, there is, but it doesn't last long. And when that euphoria is over with, you spiral down further than where you were before. And then you're back to thinking, okay, now what can I do to make myself feel better?
So you continue.
There you go.
The process all over again.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it gets worse.
Exactly.
As time continues on.
So I would suggest that no matter what the origin of the depression, no matter what the origin or the reason for the suicidal thoughts, find something that makes you feel good. I know of another lady, she couldn't paint worth beans, but it was relaxing to her to not use a paintbrush, but she used her hands. She had a big, huge blank piece of paper in front of her. She dipped her hands in the paint, and then she just would roam around trying to see what a design she could make. And that took her mind off things. And she felt better when it was over. So find what works for you, whether it's exercise, and we know that exercise does work. Exercise also yields endorphins that make you feel better. But whatever it is, don't take that final step. That's not necessary. We would miss you. I want to meet you. And if it's not on this side, I want to meet you in heaven. So give God a chance. You know, Melissa, suicide doesn't discriminate. People of all ages, all genders, ethnicities, ethnic groups can be at risk. I've even heard of kids as young as 10 and 11, threatening suicide, even committing suicide.
It's a great point that you bring up. Suicide, it does not discriminate. And what saddens me is the age group between 15 and 24 who have thoughts of suicide or who have committed suicide. As in the video, we heard about the story of Tyler and how he decided to give up. And he was a young person. And it's unfortunate that that is even a thought. But our young people have many stressors as well. And sometimes we forget about that.
Yeah, we do. They have a lot of stressors. Not only do they have to deal with school and learning, but then they have to deal with peer pressure. They have to deal with the fact that maybe they're not as tall as other kids are in the classroom, or they don't look the same, or their clothes are not quite what other people or other kids think they should be. Then they have to deal with family pressures at home. And sometimes the family situation at home is just not, it's not a happy place, and sometimes it's not a very safe place. And so kids feel as though there's no hope.
But we know there's always hope.
Always hope. Always hope. In fact, one of the things when I was studying and researching the topic of suicide, one of the things that really bothered me was the fact that there were so many people, and I forgot what the video said, but there's 100 and some people that die every day in the United States. And then I looked, and there were many, many people who were famous who attempted suicide unsuccessfully. And the message I really want to get across to people, no matter what age you are, no matter what ethnic group you belong to, if you commit suicide, you are leaving the world with a great loss. You don't know what the future holds. If you commit suicide, you'll never reach your full potential. You don't want to commit suicide. They need to get help. We need to get help. If we feel bad, and there are times when we all feel bad, then we need to seek help. Don't go the route of suicide. Please don't do that. It has such a impact on, as we discussed earlier, with family and friends.
Yes, and I also want to touch on a point as far as certain groups who are at higher risk. And some of those groups, and I pulled up some information from the CDC, men are more likely to die by suicide than women, but women are more likely to attempt suicide. Men are more likely to use more lethal methods, such as firearms or even suffocation. And we just need to be sensitive to the fact of the things that are going on today.
Yes, yes. During this time of COVID, I think it has pointed out quite a bit of our, not just vulnerabilities, but also our great need for socialization. And I think about the parents who have kids at home, especially little kids, and little kids are such a dear. I mean, they just love to just rip, run, and play. You can give them popcorn, they think they're having a feast. But the parent, meantime, doesn't have an out.
Exactly.
Especially the one-parent household. If you got two, then maybe you can foster, maybe the mother can foster kids and the dad, or vice versa, the dad can foster kids off on the mother, particularly when they're not working, if they're working at home. And then one person go take a music break or whatever, go sit in the bathtub for a while. But oftentimes, in the single-parent home, you don't get that break.
Correct. And especially now, since we're in this pandemic, a lot of us are isolated.
Yes.
We can't just go out and say, okay, the babysitter can come over, or we can call mom or dad or whoever your resource is to come over and help. Now we have to actually put a little bit more thought into our actions. And some of it has been more restricting than we're used to, as we were coming up. So.
It's more strict, but I think also this time of COVID has helped us to come up with some different answers, come up with some answers that actually work. Because I know a lot of families will contact each other using Zoom, and there are other methods of doing that, or maybe even just doing a duo video call.
Yes,
and that can help. And I would like to suggest that even if you feel down, even when you feel suicidal, just for a moment, just stop and take yourself out of that mentation, out of those downward spiraling steps, and say, Lord, just help me. Now, there may be somebody else who's feeling as bad as I am. What can I do to help them? What can I do? Think about somebody who may be alone, maybe a senior, somebody, and give them a call. And just let them know that that you're thinking about them. Sit down and write a card or somebody and mail it to them. But above all, I think the main thing is, no matter what we're feeling, and like I said, we all have down periods, we need to recognize that our best friend is Jesus. He never leaves us. He never lets us alone. And when you're at your worst point, I don't care how low you get, if you depend on Jesus, you're going to go up.
Oh, absolutely.
Find a promise and stick to it. We talked about that in the last video.
Yes.
Find a promise that fits your need and stick with it.
Yes, absolutely. You can always call on Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Suicide is a very tough topic to talk about, and it's painful to even experience or hear about someone even attempting to commit suicide. But there are resources available. We will post the National Suicide Hotline. They're available 24 hours a day. So if you see something, say something. If someone has come to you, even though they have vowed you to secrecy, it is important that you get that individual help. So please reach out to the toll-free number for the National Suicide Hotline. Also, if you're on social media and you see someone posting suicidal content, please reach out to that social media outlet, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. They do have resources available and how you can reach out and help that person, or they will reach out and help that person.
We'd like to thank you for joining us today. I hope that we've proved a blessing to you. And I'd like to invite you back to the session this evening at 7:30, where we'll have more discussions, and you can also ask questions, and let's dialogue a little bit. So thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Bye.
We want to thank you for tuning in to our mental health series. We pray that you have been blessed, and we want to encourage you to join us on Thursday nights at 7:30 p.m. And if you haven't registered, please register so that you can receive your free book by June Hunt. Register now while supplies last. God bless.